Hello, first years. This then is the final project before the final major project. So this is the last project whereby you will be assessed to only fail or pass. The next project, the final project of the year, is appropriately entitled the final major project and will determine your overall grade for the first year of your UAL in creative media production. This will be assessed at fail or pass. And this is the grading matrix that we use for each of your projects. The FMP will be looking at pass, merit, and distinction. But for this, the interactive project, there's no reason why you can't start working towards the merit and distinction level in terms of testing yourself against the standards of the expectations, in terms of what you need to do to get a distinction, to get a merit. Because you can all get passes so far. We've seen that in the other projects. Merit and distinction is something you need to be conscious of. So I'll refer back to this, as I always do throughout this assignment walkthrough for the interactive project. So, the interactive project, the brief looks a little bit different. If you would like a brief that's a little bit similar to the ones we have had, I've got one for you. I understand that it's not as accessible perhaps as other assignment briefs, and I want to make sure it's accessible for all of you, whether you're colourblind or just have difficulty comprehending and deciphering the text in this graphically designed brief. I've got another version for you as well. So, interactive projects will cover Unit 7. So, I'm going to launch it in your classroom after I've done this walkthrough. In the interactive project, you're covering one unit, Unit 7. The deadline will be the 29th of March 2019 at 4:30. As always, deadlines at 4:30 on a Friday. Hashtag for this project will be Creative Studios BCOT, sharing our work online. We'll talk more about that in class. It covers Unit 7, which is investigating interactive media production and technology. The aim of this unit is to help you develop your ability to critically analyse and to use new and emerging technologies. Fujitsu are overseeing this project. So you've been asked by Fujitsu to contribute towards a research project that investigates how different forms of interactive media, whether they be augmented reality, whether they be using virtual, mixed reality, whether it be using games, artificial intelligence, whether it be using social media, whether it be using choose your own path style stories similar to Netflix's Black Mirror Bandersnatch. Anything whereby the audience interacts and engages with the media is what you're looking to create in this, the interactive project. You're going to be working in a team of 2 to 3 people. So, in your team, you're going to select a form of interactive media and then plan a prototype idea. You'll be doing that in my lessons in particular, planning a prototype, and then you're going to test it, get feedback, test it, get feedback, test it, get feedback, until your idea improves and clarifies into its final form, your finished interactive project. Individually, on your WordPress blog, you need to evidence all of your contributions so I can see who has done what. All of your completed project work, of course, needs to be handed in to Google Classroom at the end of the project. So, under classwork, it will sit here under UAL projects. And of course, we'll have a separate tab whereby we'll put all the work for the interactive project as well, which I can, as you can see, move up right underneath the project. So it'll be nice and easy for you to find, okay? So I'll put it above this one here now. Lovely. So this way you'll find it. I'm going to add the assignment walkthrough that you're watching right now here, so you can go back to it as and when you need to. Now, let's go back to brief. So let's have a look at the next page, which is important to me. This is a project that actively encourages you to take risks, to fail fast and learn from your mistakes quickly by testing things out, taking risks, taking chances, and then realizing perhaps that there's a different way to go, failing fast and then learning from that, telling me what you've taken from that. That shows real learning, real depth of knowledge. Evidence that, show me that, tell me what you've learned from it, extract the meaning from each of your risks that you take, all the chances you take, all the demos you create, all the research you undertake. Learn from your mistakes. It's really crucial to me that we do this in this project more than any other before we reach the final major project. It's important you feel that you can take these chances on our course, which does facilitate this. The UAL standard is so wonderfully open and embracing of this. And as young creatives, it's something that you need to get used to doing. That growth mindset approach of you are never actually the finished article. We're constantly just getting better each time. I want to see you problem solve. I want to see you meet, of course, the deadline. Meet the deadline. It's important. Here are the tasks you need to do in the interactive project. So, 1.1 is requirements. Tell me the expectations and limits of the project. Where are the borders? What barriers are there? What resources do you need? Is there an audience for it? If so, prove it. Give me stats and facts to prove that. What are you going to be creating and why are you going to be creating that? Tell me what this project requires from you. What requirements are there in terms of resource, in terms of time for you in creating said project? For 1.2, research. I want you to apply some research activities, at least one primary method, whether that be social media polls, hashtag discussions, research print screens of meaningful communication from Reddit forums or tweets. A focus group of at least 3 people, 3 to 5 people is best, discussing your idea, getting feedback from people ideally beyond the classroom. Bit of an echo chamber, a classroom of people with similar ideas and sensibilities. Test it against your target audience. Google Forms. You have access to this in your drive. Maybe do a form. Make sure it's available and accessible to people beyond the college and get as many responses as possible. And at least one form of secondary research as well, whether that be learning from tutorials, articles, practice demos. So at least one of primary and secondary, please. Okay. So we then go on to this section here, which is the most exciting bit to me, the prototype. You're going to make a prototype, a test of your interactive project. So I want behind the scenes updates and vlogs of you individually. This is planning, organizing and presenting your ideas. You're going to make a paper prototype. You're going to create using Post-its, bits of paper, a prototype of your product. So people can actually look at it and test it, and get a feel for it before you actually create the real thing. This project will start analog in terms of it being paper and pencils and become more and more digital and refined as we progress. The paper prototype we're going to create using different tools. A prototype. Now this here is something I've done recently with Google HQ. I created a paper prototype of my idea for English and maths lessons in terms of testing what I'm going to be creating. You could create a prototype of the actual device, for example, like so, holding up the actual prototype to your test audience and get them to press a button. When they press a button, you can then give them what the next screen shows. So they press that button and all of a sudden you hold up that. Then they press, I don't know, swipe backwards and then you show them what they then see. You actually talk them through the process and get feedback the whole time as to what they expect to see, how they want to interact with it, what it's doing, what it's not doing, what they would like it to do. That feedback is going to be crucial in terms of your paper prototype of your interactive project idea. You're going to create examples and demos of your project for others to test in this way. After that, and it's crucial, it's after the prototype, you're going to actually create it. So whether it be using software such as Metaverse for augmented reality, or whether it be using YouTube for choose your own path videos, maybe it's going to be using a tool like Zapper for augmented reality or Blipper, or perhaps you're going to be creating using ThingLink 360 a virtual reality image or video for your audience to step in and to interact and select multiple choice answers within. Maybe you want to borrow our 360 camera to create some 360 content. Maybe you want to experiment with artificial intelligence and create a chatbot that you can have interact with anyone who goes onto a website or your WordPress, answering questions. What do you want to do? It's open. We'll be discussing this in the first week or so of this project, then you're going to create an example of an interactive project. Of course, on your WordPress every week, give me updates of the process of the project. Tell me what you're learning. This is new terrain to all of us. I've only experimented with augmented and virtual reality for the last year or so. I'm learning alongside you as well, and it's going to be fun doing so. Evidence how the project is going and justify your choices all the while. It's important you do this. At the end, of course, you will evaluate, but this time on a bit more depth. At least 5 minutes in a vlog, at least 5 minutes as a podcast, or at least 500 words as written. It has to be at least one of these three. You can receive feedback from the client and myself and your peers. You can answer these questions as to how effective your project was, okay? Now, of course, I will be assessing your work according to these criteria here. So using my tablet, I'm going to be circling achieved or not achieved for these criteria here. As you can see, the 1.1 and 1.2 relates directly to the tasks here. So by doing this, you hit that criteria. Hence why it's so important to read this brief thoroughly. So this is what I'm using to assess your work. The deadline is the 29th of March 2019 at 4:30. Now, if you need any help, any extra sessions, any extra time, speak to me on Hangouts. But it's really important that you demonstrate independence and problem solving in this team project. So 2 to 3 people to create an interactive project. Now, the interactive project is the last one before the FMP. So it's really important you are increasingly conscious of, as I keep saying to you guys, but I keep saying it with good reason, what we use when we mark your work. So in the help section in classwork, you'll see this standard here, this grading matrix, which shows pass, merit, and distinction expectations for each of the skills you are demonstrating. So just to take one right now, in terms of problem solving, many of you are getting passes because you are showing sufficient exploration of alternative ideas when you're backed into a corner or things don't go according to plan. Merit level would be more initiative and focus in solving a problem rather than waiting for your teacher to come along and solve it with you. Adapting to unforeseen practical issues, software not working, a room not being available, cameras not quite doing what you expect them to do, ideas not quite working the way you had planned. Thinking on your feet and being adaptive, agile, flexible, proactive, productive workers would be more merit level. Distinction level would be you showing real decisive demonstration of initiative, solving problems autonomously on your own independently, implementing creative solutions actually improves your idea, and identifying your goals and meeting these identified goals regardless of unforeseen issues that get in the way of you and your targets that you outline, of course, at the beginning of the project in the 1.1 requirements section. So deadline is 29th of the 3rd, 2019 at 4:30. We are going to be closing this project, and then after that the final major project begins. So yes, it's a big one, but yes, you are also very much ready for this challenge. I'm available all the time online, as you know, as well as in person, but it's crucial that you use your time in lessons and out of lessons equally productively. Okay? Right. Quite a long video again. I get a bit carried away, don't I? Any issues, let me know. Good luck.